following is a presentation of Learfield IMG College. From the Georgia Southern Sports Network, powered by Learfield IMG College.
Wings up, Eagle Nation! Touchdown, Georgia Southern!
This is Inside Eagle Nation, your all-access look into Eagle athletics.
Taking a look through all the other action in Georgia Southern athletics this past week, a lot of road action, a lot of teams hitting the old I-16 out of town.
Getting on the steel horse and taking us to parts north, south, west, wherever. Can't really go too much farther east.
Now let's return to the Learfield IMG College studios. Here are your hosts, Colin Lacy and Danny Reed.
That's a fact, Jack.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Eagle Nation as we dive into what Georgia Southern athletics looks like here on a beautiful Monday in Eagle Nation as the Eagle Caravans and the Eagle Club Tours continue for Georgia Southern athletics. Danny Reed out again. I think that's the third straight week. We've got a special guest host, but John Murphy, head coach for Georgia Southern men's soccer. Appreciate you joining us.
It's great being with you.
You've been a part of Georgia Southern athletics, finishing up your 6th year, going into the 7th here at Georgia Southern. There's a lot going on around Georgia Southern right now between indoor practice facility going up, a lot of changes around the athletic department. What's the biggest impact that you've seen from Georgia Southern athletics in your time?
Well, I'd actually go the other way, where I'm not surprised at all. So when I came in for my interview in the summer of 2016, I took a walk around campus and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was and the facilities and the resources that we had and the potential of the place. So I'm not surprised by anything that I've seen. It's impressive. I'm so happy about the synergy that's taking place on campus, but I'm not surprised. There's fantastic people here. We have new people joining us, which is adding to that. But certainly the potential and the passion for Georgia Southern has always been here, and I just think you're starting to see that bear fruit now.
We dive into what Georgia Southern athletics has looked like the last week or so. Georgia Southern cheer just won their 8th national title down in Daytona. Do have to send our thoughts out to Barry Muncassie dealing with a couple of health issues, but a huge congratulations going out to Georgia Southern cheer. You want to talk about Georgia Southern football with 6 national titles. Now cheer with 8 national title rings. That's a huge accomplishment for Georgia Southern cheer.
Absolutely, and again, no surprise with the program that Barry's built and those young people, certainly the co-ed group coming in 3rd and the women's group coming and winning a national championship. That's fantastic for that entire program, and echo your sentiments about Barry and certainly echo the congratulations to the entire program. It's fantastic to be a national champion in any endeavor.
Georgia Southern men's golf taking 4th at the Stitch Intercollegiate in Raleigh, North Carolina this past weekend. 4 Eagles finish individually in the top 25. Ben Carr leads the way with 7th. He finishes even for the tournament. They'll have a couple of weeks off before heading to El Dorado, Arkansas for the Sun Belt Conference Championships. You a big golf fan?
You know, I'm really impressed with the golf team having such a great outing because it was during Masters weekend. I know how you golf people are, but I'm not only a hack, I'm a lefty hack, which is the worst kind of hack. So I enjoy it every time I'm out there, but I'm certainly not a golf aficionado. It's not my sport.
You want to talk about things that Georgia Southern has to have pride in. Bennett Ramsey Golf Facility, yeah. That's a beautiful place out there.
Yeah. We bring our recruits out there, and Carter has always been quite gracious to have us out there, and obviously Mimi as well now. But I have to say that there can't be too many facilities in the country better than that. And as you alluded to, the indoor trainer facility being the ground being broken in a couple of weeks, and all the things going on with the Convocation Center, it's just really exciting. And the big programs that I've been involved with, Clemson, Boston College, the facilities are big, and for us to take on so many of these endeavors at this time, it just shows how much our athletic department and our university is growing.
Look at Georgia Southern men's tennis finishing up the regular season this past weekend. They were against Georgia State, number 65 in the country, in Statesboro on Thursday. Fell 2-4 to the Panthers and then fell 4-0 at Coastal Carolina on Saturday. They will enter Sun Belt Conference tournament play up in Peachtree City this weekend. Thursday, they will have the number 2 seed South Alabama. Georgia Southern finishing 7th in the league, so they're the 7th seed against the 2 seed South Alabama on Thursday, and it'll be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday up in Peachtree City for the Sun Belt Conference Championships.
Yeah, I was out there at the Georgia State match last week, and obviously with all these sports, the difference between winning and losing is so small. So you hear 2-4, and you think that it's a match that got away from them. And I was out there for a majority of the competition, and it was amazing, really top level tennis. But now they're in a tournament situation. Anything can happen. I think Jeremy's done a tremendous job in his first year, and they have some very talented individuals. So you should never be surprised if a 2 plays a 7 and there's an upset. So I could see that happening.
Georgia Southern women's tennis got the victory 7-0 at the Wallace Tennis Center on Friday against Florida A&M. They then headed out to Jonesboro, Arkansas, a tough loss 4-3 to the Red Wolves on Sunday. They will wrap up the regular season in Atlanta on Friday against the Georgia State Panthers, 10:30 a.m. the first serve from Atlanta, and then wrap up the regular season at home against Appalachian State on Saturday. That a 10 o'clock first serve at the Wallace Tennis Center for Georgia Southern women's tennis. And then they, the following week, will head up to Peachtree City for the Sun Belt tournament as well.
Yeah, defending national champions, and Sean McCaffrey's won national championships. So you talk about a coach that's got experience and understands what it takes to win. And, I think this is a young group, and a group that's, fought some adversity during the year, and they played very well at home. And then you have that quick turnaround to go on the road. I can see them settling in and getting themselves ready to defend their championship in a couple of weeks.
Georgia Southern Rifle adding somebody to your head coaching fraternity. The new head coach for Georgia Southern Women's Rifle in Soren Butler, a 2-time All-American at Alaska Fairbanks, spent the last 5 years at West Virginia. And that's something I think that's special that a lot of people don't understand. All the head coaches around Georgia Southern Athletics really rally around each other, and there's a group that and a chemistry there that I don't think that's everywhere.
It's not, and I also think that starts with the quality first of all. So I've been in 2 different Power 5 athletic departments, and I'd put our coaching staffs up against any of those, and so the quality's quite high. I got a chance to meet Soren, and talk about a really impressive young man and young coach, and to take a chance at a head coaching job anywhere. We talked about it briefly during his interview, and I think that's exciting for him. It's an exciting place to come to. Again, our rifle facility has to be one of the best in the country, on campus facilities, and we talked about the different things that you're looking for as a young coach, and I think athletic department, athletic director, resources, energy, those are the things that you're looking for as a young coach. So I think he's coming into an exciting situation, obviously a program that just won the SoCon championship, and I think he's the type of person that's looking to build on all the good work that's been done previously.
We have talked about what Coach Warman has done with this program, retiring after the SoCon championship just a few weeks ago, but she's somebody that made a huge impact, not just on Georgia Southern Rifle, but this athletic department.
Yeah, she's a very special person, and it was very disappointing to hear of her retirement, but I'm very happy that her and her husband Rob are going to stay in the area, which is very important. She's good friends with a lot of us, and she's a colleague I have a great deal of respect for, and again, she produced championships and top rifle student athletes, and I just think that's a great platform to Soren to now come in and see if he can take that next step with this program.
Dive into Georgia Southern softball. They were supposed to be at home this past weekend, but those 3 games against Coastal Carolina getting postponed due to unforeseen circumstances. Now Georgia Southern softball will head on the road to UT Arlington in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex to take on the Mavericks Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, much like Georgia Southern baseball this weekend. A Thursday, Friday, Saturday series to get Easter Sunday off this week for head coach for Georgia Southern softball, and that's a big part of it, both on the baseball side, and I know Tony Robichaux was a huge leader in that for Louisiana whenever Georgia Southern and the Sun Belt Conference baseball made the switch from Thursday, Friday, Saturday on Easter weekend, but that's a big part for softball too.
Oh, no question about it, and I enjoy watching softball. My wife was a outstanding student athlete during her time, so I've seen more softball than you would think. Oh, absolutely. So I enjoy softball very much and love watching our team. And Coach Perkins is doing an amazing job. And similar to what Jeremy's doing in tennis, when you take a program over, and Mimi obviously is doing the same thing with women's golf, and you're trying to take over a program. You're working with young people that you've inherited, and obviously you have your own style and philosophy, and it just shows like the quality of the coaches that we have, that really you can step in and not only see good performances, but improvement on those performances. So softball's had some great results, and I think it's the consistency that I think Coach Perkins would be looking for, as we all do in all sports. So sometimes when those games come thick and fast, particularly in a sport like softball, it can be to your advantage. So certainly being at home, I think, will be good for them.
Diving to Georgia Southern baseball, was a really fun week out in San Marcos, Texas, to take on the number 10 team in the country, the Texas State Bobcats. Georgia Southern taking 2 out of 3. We start on Friday night. It was a 7-4 victory for Georgia Southern over Texas State. Took 11 innings, and Georgia Southern down in this game 3-2 going to the ninth. You get the tying run in the ninth inning off a guy in Tristan Stivers, who had been the best closer in the Sun Belt Conference all year, had only allowed 2 runs all year to Sun Belt Conference opponents. Georgia Southern tags him for 5. Not only is that a huge start to the weekend against a number 10 team on the road, but you and I talked about it before we started recording this is a huge RPI series for Georgia Southern. To get it started off on the right foot is a huge step.
Absolutely, and we talked about it off camera, where the really the strength of schedule that Coach Hennon has put together. You're really playing top teams. You're playing Tennessee, you're playing Georgia, Central Florida, and in any sport, when you play these top teams early on, it really gets your group up to speed, and obviously they've had great results, so that adds on to the RPI. So we're not surprised now when you see us go into Texas and get 2 out of 3 against a top 10 team. That just shows the quality of this group.
Friday night, Eagles got the tying run in the ninth inning. Eagles and Bobcats traded runs in the 10th, and then 3 in the top of the 11th, made for a 7-4 final score in favor of Georgia Southern. It was a windy day on Saturday in San Marcos as Georgia Southern got the victory 13-11. You had Ty Fisher going against Levi Wells, the top 2 ERAs in the Sun Belt Conference coming into that game. But because of how that ballpark was playing, you knew it was going to be a heavily offensive day coming in for Saturday for Georgia Southern and Texas State. You and I talked about it a little bit, how much wind affects not only baseball, but really all sports, and especially the way soccer plays. How do you, as a coach, transfer that to, hey, this is how you need to tweak what we're doing today?
Yeah, I would never speak for Coach Hennon, but I was watching the homestand the weekend before, and it was quite windy here in Statesboro, and I would think it's just like any sport. It's about concentration and really, keeping your eye on the ball when you're fielding, and obviously it's not going to affect balls that are hit into the infield, but you're talking about balls that are going out into the outfield, and obviously if the wind's carrying out to the fence, then the ball's going to go further, but these swirling winds is probably what makes it difficult, where you've taken a step in and it goes over your head, or vice versa. So I would think in any sport, and certainly baseball, it's about concentration and keeping the ball in play, keeping the ball in front of you, not letting the ball get behind you, so you're allowing the opponent to get extra base hits. But I mean, for me, the amount of runs and the offensive production from our baseball team this weekend against top opposition, I mean, that's a great sign, whether it's windy or not.
You had really good production from the bottom of the order, 7, 8, 9 in the Eagle order. Finished up with 6 runs, 8 RBIs. Sammy Blancato had 4 RBIs. Kyler Holtgren had a grand slam, that in the 7th inning. And Georgia Southern allowed 4 runs in 2 different innings to Texas State. But you answer that with 6 runs in the 5th inning. You answer it with 5 runs in the 7th inning. And so even though you give it up, you answer back right after.
Yeah, and it's momentum swings, and you see it a lot in basketball now, where a 12-point lead doesn't really mean anything anymore. It's 3 trips up the floor, and then the game's tied. So, I think you're seeing that more in sports now with these big momentum swings, and it's obviously how you handle them when you're on top, and then able to shut people down when they're starting to get a little bit, and obviously the pitching came through for us on two of those days to get us out of those tough games.
On Sunday, Texas State would get the better of Georgia Southern, a 10-9 victory in walk-off fashion. Georgia Southern again rallies in the ninth inning, 2 runs in the top of the ninth inning to take the lead 9-8. That again off Tristan Stivers, one of the best closers in the Sun Belt Conference. But Texas State answers with 2 in the bottom of the ninth to walk it off 10-9 against Georgia Southern. But we've talked about it already. A huge weekend for Georgia Southern baseball, not only from a confidence side, but from an RPI side. Texas State came in the top team in the Sun Belt Conference. You take 2 out of 3 on the road, and that's tough to do in this Sun Belt Conference in any sport, but especially for baseball.
No, there's no doubt, and obviously, fans want to see their teams win, and as Eagle fans, we want to see all of our teams succeed. But it goes a little bit further about our baseball team going to 3 out of 4 Sun Belt championships. That shows a level of consistency, and obviously we want to win every game we're involved with. But it takes that consistency is what gives you the platform to then go and play top teams and get those types of results. So I'm not surprised in what I've seen from Coach Hennon and his team the years that I've been here. Very, very consistent, talented and motivated teams, and I'm really excited for the rest of the year for this team.
Continues this week coming up for Georgia Southern baseball at Presbyterian on Tuesday. That'll be a 6 o'clock first pitch. We'll be on the air with the Cutwater Spirits on deck circle starting at 5:30 from Clinton, South Carolina. And then Georgia Southern welcomes in the Georgia State Panthers. It's going to be good to be home for the first time in a little while. But Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Thursday and Friday at 6:30 first pitch at J.I. Clements Stadium. 2 o'clock first pitch on Saturday against Georgia State. Georgia State will come in the top team in the Sun Belt Conference. They just swept Coastal Carolina on the road last week. They'll come in 10-2 in Sun Belt play. And it's a big series for Georgia Southern baseball. Coming off the road, you get Georgia State at home. Georgia State, one of the hottest teams in the conference, won their last 7. They will play Georgia Tech tomorrow night up in Atlanta. But that's a big series for Georgia Southern and really need everybody out at JI.
Oh, there's no doubt. And the games that I've been, the home baseball games that I've been in particular, the crowds turned a couple of those games. Yeah. It's amazing. And I've sat in the main stands and really our players react very well to that kind of support. So yeah, we need to get out there. We need to support baseball, and it's a big one. And even seeing Georgia State play men's tennis, there's something about those uniforms that get your blood boiling. So we need everybody out there for Georgia State. Every game's important, but certainly for an in-state rival, it'd be a great weekend for baseball.
Georgia Southern comes in tied for 3rd in the Sun Belt Conference with Troy just 2 games back of Georgia State. But we talk about getting out to J.I. Clements, and you're somebody that's a huge proponent of everybody across athletics going and supporting everybody else. Sure. We think of Sean McCaffrey does a really good job of it. There's a lot of people around athletics that do a good job of getting out to everything, whether it's tennis, swimming, rifle, whatever it is for athletics. Yeah. You got to support your own.
Yeah, and it's not easy. So, we certainly appreciate when colleagues and people that we work with come, and we notice the people in the community that come to our games, and I certainly run into quite a few of them when we're at the other sports as well. But yeah, it makes a big difference for sure. And everyone's wearing the colors for the university and trying to represent the school in the best way possible and their program in the best way possible. And we love our fan base, and it's one of the reasons why I came down here. I knew it was going to be like this because football is such a big brand, and football drives these types of communities, and obviously we have fantastic support for that, but we have great support for our other sports. I love watching games in Hannah. I love watching men's and women's basketball and our volleyball teams, and so the people in this area are fantastic supporters of Georgia Southern, and it's great to be a part of it.
We're going to get into your story a little bit later on in this week's edition of Inside Eagle Nation, and people can get their questions in. You can comment here on Facebook Live, or you can tweet at GS Sports Network. But a big part of what you've done at a lot of your different stops has been getting out in the community and becoming a part of the community. Why is that so important for you?
Yeah, I think there needs to be some balance in the work that you do. So I'm pretty intense when it comes to my job, and I just think there's only so much of that other people can handle. So you have to have some balance in your life, and I think that's important. I'm big on gratitude. I think gratitude shows perspective. It shows maturity. So we try to get the kids out into the community, and it provides them with opportunities to interact with people and see, and sometimes programs. There's people that don't have as much as they have. And like I said, it gives you that gratitude. It gives you that perspective. And, certainly as much as we're talking about all these games and how important they are in the whole scheme of things, they're not. That what's more important for these young people is, to make sure that they're good people, they're good citizens, they're getting a degree from Georgia Southern, and then obviously going out there and giving us great performances on the court, on the field, whatever they do. But I think that perspective and balance is important. So it's not only important for them, it's important for my staff and I as well.
One final note we've got to get to before we dive into Georgia Southern men's soccer and the Murph file is women's soccer getting a 1-0 victory over Florida this past Saturday down in SEC country. Yeah. Huge win for Chris Adams and company.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I have it in my notes. So, sometimes these off-season scrimmages, people will put them aside as something that's, maybe not that important, but it is important. And I think that it just shows all the great work that Coach Adams has done. And we've talked about first-year coaches, talking about making an impact and coming in and right away and really changing the culture for the better. So I'm not surprised at all, but Chris is a great colleague. And, we talked about the game this morning at length, and they have a really good group of players, and they have a fantastic recruiting class coming in. So I think that's a program that's going to continue to go on the rise, and us beating an SEC team in women's soccer, no one should be surprised.
I know that the two sports of men's soccer and women's soccer are very different, X's and O's wise, but how much are you two able to kind of get together and just talk soccer? No,
it's very important, and it's, you think about basketballs where, because it's an indoor venue, I mean, the two basketball programs, one could have practice at 7 in the morning and the other one could have 7 o'clock at night and then never see each other. But, because soccer is an outdoor sport, we really do have to share facilities, we share equipment. And every place that I've ever worked, I've made a real effort to try and connect with the women's staff. And I've been fortunate to work with some fantastic colleagues on their side that felt the same way. So Chris and I, are kindred spirits in that. And I feel like we work very well together, and we try and meet at least once a week on our own, and we'll have our staffs meet this Wednesday. There's times that we have to do things on our own, and there's things that women's soccer needs to do and men's soccer needs to do, but I also think there's times where we're stronger together. So we're going to be doing our alumni weekend on spring weekend, during the True Blue weekend, and we'll have our men's and women's soccer alumni event, which is always really well attended by both programs, and we do it together. And I think it's a great example of that collaboration. So it's important. You need the other person on the other side to see the value of it. And like I said, Chris is a fantastic coach, great guy, he's got a lot of experience. So I enjoy talking soccer with him, and X's and O's, he's as good as any coach I've been around.
You talk about the True Blue weekend, that coming up in a couple of weeks, April the 23rd. It'll be the spring game for Georgia Southern football, but a lot of events around it. The ribbon cutting for the indoor practice facility and the groundbreaking for it. You've also got the True Blue barbecue that I hear that you are going for the title.
That is true. And I don't want too much of it getting out in public, because I'm really trying to work behind the scenes to make sure that I'm ready for that weekend. But I enjoy my barbecue, and I'm a when in Rome guy. So living down here in the South, I've picked up my offset smoker and learned how to do that over the years. And it's almost like Italian food. If it comes out lousy, just throw some sauce on it. So it's the same thing with my barbecue. So, but just as excited, if not more, for the indoor training facility. I think that's going to be a very special event and very special moment for everybody in our athletic department, because that's a big endeavor for sure.
Jared and Chris have talked about it a lot ever since the thought of this came about for the indoor practice facility, that it was going to touch all 17 sports. For soccer specifically, how much of a benefit is that for you guys?
Yeah, it's so I'll go this way with it. I think anything that's good for football is good for all of us, and I think that's the first way I look at it. Secondly, we probably don't have as many practices knocked out because of bad weather that football has. So I think there's times where with football, and I have a lot of admiration for it. I mean, it's run like an army. You really have so many people and so many moving parts. And obviously we have a smaller group. So the need for the weather aspect of it, for lightning, is not as great, but certainly the heat, and certainly the days where it gets really, really tough down here, that's where you're going to see the benefit for it. So I'm excited that it's going to make a big difference for our football program, but also too for our other sports, for men's and women's soccer. for the outdoor sports that, like baseball and softball, and there's ways that it can be used and creative ways that it can be used for all of our sports. And I got a lot of respect for Jared and Chris in the way that they look at that, and they're really aspirational, and they're trying to touch all the programs at the same time, which I'm grateful for. But to answer your question, there's times that we'll use it, and I think it's more for the heat than it would be necessarily for lightning, because I think there's times that we all practice at the same time. I would think football would get the priority if we're practicing at the same time, and we can shift because we have a smaller group. I can't imagine having a football practice in Hanover Fieldhouse. That's not. I wouldn't think that'd be very helpful. So I think it's great for all of us.
Dive into the offseason for Georgia Southern men's soccer, and first and foremost, it just coming out this past week that the Sunbelt Soccer is reforming. Going to get it back for Sunbelt Conference Soccer. You've got Georgia Southern, Coastal, and Georgia State already in the league, going to be a part of it. The incoming members of JMU, Marshall, and Old Dominion coming in, but also adding a couple of bigger names that people wouldn't have thought would be coming into Sunbelt Conference Soccer. Kentucky, South Carolina, and West Virginia joining the league as well. From the teams that you've got in the Sunbelt Conference, and we'll get into how this all came about in a little bit, but from the teams, what does this mean for Georgia Southern to be a part of this now?
Yeah, I think it's without a doubt top 5 conference in the country, and obviously we have to play a season or two before we can start thinking of ourselves as any higher than that, but just pure pedigree in regards to the teams that are in, including us. And I think sometimes that would be people would look beyond us, and I think that would be a mistake for anybody. But certainly the other 8 programs with Georgia Southern, those are 9 programs that are very well respected throughout the country, and really going to put our program and the other 8 programs really on a platform to show people what we can do. As a coaching group, we feel like it's a group that should be able to get 5 to 6 teams in the NCAA tournament, which is an amazing turnaround. And I've always had confidence in the Sun Belt. I think we have great leadership from within the conference all the way through to the various athletic directors and administrations on these campuses. But to put together a conference like that, it's created quite a buzz throughout the college soccer world, and there's a lot of people that are really fired up about it.
You've been a big proponent for Sunbelt Conference Soccer the first time around, and then whenever it disbanded, and now the second time around as well. Why is it so important to have a Sunbelt Conference Soccer?
Yeah, I think that you want to be aligned. You want to be aligned with your athletic department. And obviously when we had the issues with the previous edition of the Sunbelt, I mean, we really had a small footprint of member schools and then a couple of auxiliary schools, and the problem with that is as soon as they decide to go on and move on to other things, that's when you're going to be vulnerable, and obviously losing App State was horrible for all of us, anybody who loves the game, because that's a program that had great traditions going back to the 60s and 70s in the South, and so we were very disappointed about that. But I've always had faith in the Sun Belt, and we were prepared to be an independent for a year or two. We just didn't know how long that transition period would be, so we went into the MAC. And, for me, the MAC was so impressive. It was such an impressive group, and it was probably the best season they had in the history of MAC soccer. And I like to think we can take a little bit of credit. Our RPI was so high for a team that had the record that we had, but our RPI was like 104, which is absolutely astounding. And it just shows you the difficulty of the schedule that we played. And again, we played that schedule on purpose. I'll stand by that schedule. We were a little thin with some injuries. But we had a team that was good enough, and on our day we could play anybody, and we really played very well against Northern Illinois at home, tied the game. Northern Illinois went on and won the conference. They won the conference tournament. I'd like to think that's a more accurate assessment of where that group was, rather than some of the games that perhaps got away from us. So, to go to the MAC for a year, that wasn't the plan, but, we appreciated their efforts to try and bring us in, but it makes all the sense in the world. You have to come back to the Sun Belt, and we couldn't be more pleased. And the games that we have with Georgia State and with Coastal, I mean, those are really, really top games. And all of a sudden you start adding some of these teams in, and believe me, it's really going to bring our program forward.
We talked about it with Terry just a few minutes ago. He comes in and says, man, look at that schedule.
Yeah.
And I loved your response of, that's why we've scheduled the way we have since you got here.
That's right.
That's not a daunting schedule anymore because you've played a schedule that's been as impressive.
Yeah, I'm up at night thinking about it a little bit, but we've during my 6 years we've played Duke, we've played Clemson twice, we play Louisville, we play Wake Forest, we play everybody. So we're in the best area in the country for Division I men's soccer. So for me, it's a bus ride up the road to play some of the best teams. So I've always tried to do that. I feel if you want to, eventually you want to be a champion, you have to play those teams. And I've told these kids, like, I didn't come down here to play South Carolina. I came down here to beat South Carolina. I feel the same way about Clemson. I feel the same way about Marshall, and they won the national championship 2 years ago. So, sometimes when the results don't follow that, you think it's, pie in the sky or it's hyperbole, and it's not. I think we've been building towards this, and the fact that we had COVID kind of knock us back a little bit, that's tough. But our record in our seasons before COVID were very, very competitive. And I feel that we're on our way back. Last year's team was young and thin. We're building on it with a very strong recruiting class, and I feel very confident going into this new Sun Belt season that we're going to be ready for it. So it's going to be very exciting.
Talk about what this period looks like for Georgia Southern men's soccer. This is kind of the quiet period for you guys where there's not a whole lot of headlines coming out, but still a lot going on in this program.
Yeah, and this is all part of being a Division I student athlete. It's the same for all of our sports here, and everybody sees the tip of the iceberg and they don't see everything that's underneath the water, and this is really where it takes place. So our staff at Ironworks, Jake Mendoza, the work that he does with our group, it really makes a big difference. And soccer is no different than any other sport. You want to try and get bigger, stronger, faster. The things that we do at this time of year in regards to some team building and some community work, the academic piece is very important for us as well. And so it's about getting the balance, because once we're in season, like we were just talking about how late baseball got back the other day, it's the same thing with us. We get back from some of these games 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then the kids have to get up, they have to go to practice, they have to go and do their classes. So you try and get some balance in the spring, but the spring can't be a cakewalk either. It has to be difficult. So we're finishing off our training sessions now. We're going to be doing pretty substantive battery of physical tests next week, in kind of to go off of what we did at the beginning of the semester, to see what growth's taking place, and hopefully we're moving in a positive direction with that. And then we have our alumni coming on campus for the 22nd and 23rd, and that's a great way for us to end our spring.
We talked about it a little bit earlier. You've got a really good group of alumni for Georgia Southern men's and women's soccer, part of that GATA FC that you started whenever you got here to Statesboro. You've mentioned a couple of times, but how important is that group to be able to not only connect with this Georgia Southern men's soccer team, but also have an impact?
Yeah, I think they have an impact in a lot of different ways, and one of the best ways is for them just to come to campus and connect with us. And anytime we're up in Atlanta, anytime we're at Clemson, or anytime we're at UAB, and those are easy drives from Atlanta, we have an unbelievable showing of alumni. We beat Georgia State back in 2019 up at their place, 2-1 with about 30 seconds to go, and I thought the roof was going to come off the place. There was so many, so many Eagle supporters there. So we have a fantastic alumni. Our young alumni are connected with our current team, and we want them to provide some energy. And then our older guys come in and they really provide perspective and support. And we've had guys move on to really good paying jobs because of their connection with our alumni. And then obviously we have some various things that we're trying to do in regards to fundraising and developing our program. We're going to be launching our men's soccer alumni group, similar to what men's golf has done. We're going to launch that the weekend of the 22nd and the 23rd. And that's a really exciting endeavor. And what it does is kind of consummate all the efforts that these guys have made over the past 40 or so years. And obviously we're trying to do it for the benefit of the student athletes, but we're also trying to do the benefit of our alumni, giving them some swag, giving them some gear. And sometimes people take that for granted in men's soccer, whereas other sports, maybe that happens a little bit more. But I think men's soccer in general needs to do a better job of that. And certainly we've made a real effort of it here at Georgia Southern to make sure we're giving back to our alumni.
As we dive into your story, we mentioned it earlier, you're entering your 7th year here at Georgia Southern. Also spent 10 years in the professional ranks, over 300 professional matches, and we've done a little bit of digging and talked to a couple of people that may or may not remain anonymous through this. And the first question that I was told that I have to ask you, is this the man who wrecked the buffet at the Harrow Club this morning?
Yes, that's it. I know who that is. Yeah, that's Mike Fritz and I worked together at the New England Revolution, and he was the athletic trainer, and of course that's a line from Beverly Hills Cop. That's one of my favorites, and he used to regale me with that one, a story about Mike and I. We watched the very first Patriots Super Bowl win. We happened to be in the middle of Brazil, and it took us about a day to find a place that would show us the Super Bowl. And of course, we're watching it in Portuguese in the middle of this Brazilian bar, and Vinatieri kicks the field goal, and of course he and I are jumping around, and we're the only people in the place that know what's going on. So Mike's a great friend and a good Boston guy and a good Boston fan. He's got a good sense of humor too, so that's pretty funny.
Actually, not Mike that gave me that.
Oh, who's that?
Brad Feldman.
Well, Brad's connected with Mike, so he knows the story. So Brad Feldman is the head of media up with the New England Revolution, and he knows where all the bodies are buried. So he's used that line a couple times as well. So those are good times up there, and I always laugh. People say like the pros think it's all heartless, and they don't care about people, and I actually thought it was quite the opposite. I actually thought we all got along really, really well, and Brad had a fantastic relationship with the coaching staff and a lot of the players, and Mike Fritz is the trainer. Like all of us were very, very close, and obviously we had some success together. We won a couple of Eastern Conference championships. We lost an MLS Cup final together, and it was a little bit more friendly than people would think, and I would think it's that way at a lot of top teams, NBA, NFL. It's a business, but at the same time too, you're still talking about people. You're still trying to connect with people, and having that sense of humor, I think, is important.
You got to know those guys between 2000 and 2003 when you were with the New England Revolution, and then you go back in a different role when you're at Boston College in 2014, 2015, doing radio and being a radio analyst for the New England Revolution on 98.5, the Sports Hub. Talk about what that was like. How'd you get into it, first off? Yeah,
well, I have Brad to thank for that. So, again, I got great contacts. So they approached me about doing some radio work, which I was intrigued with, and basically what they were doing was they were doing the TV simulcast of what they were showing on TV. They would have on the radio, but they needed a pregame, halftime, and a postgame show, and I was involved in that, and I loved it. I found it really interesting, and I have a ton of respect for guys like yourself, because you guys can think on your feet, and you can come up with stories, and you have fans calling in, and it's tough to keep on top of all of it. But I came away really impressed, and then I did a game on TV. I did color with Brad, and Brad's like the consummate professional. I think he's been doing it for 20 some odd years, and of course I felt like a rookie, but he was helping me through it the whole time, and really, really enjoyed it. But I came away with a lot of respect for the media. It's not just like a fan sitting around talking about the game. You really do have to kind of set the scene up for the person watching on TV or listening on radio. And I have to admit, I listen to TV or radio, and I have more respect for the media now, because you do really have to think on your feet.
You listen to it different, or are you trying to critique people now?
No, I wouldn't do that. I'm sure there's plenty of people critiquing me right now, so this horrible accent.
You've seen soccer at a lot of different levels, a lot of the high levels, both at the collegiate ranks and in the professional side of it. How much did that help you, being able to take it into the media side? Yeah,
it does make a difference, but again, it's just like being a top player getting into coaching. I think it can help you, but it's not gonna make the difference. So it's the same thing. My knowledge of the game, and I wouldn't act as a pundit. I tried to act more like to analyze it. I didn't want to be a personality. I didn't want to, say something about a player or a coach in a despairing way. I prefer to analyze what I saw. But there's some guys that make a lot of money, and that's what I notice now. You see the guys that want to be, in Britain they call it a pundit. So that's a guy just like, and he really just tears people to shreds and tries to make a name for himself off the back of other people's failures. And I think that's one one thing I came into with my knowledge of the game and respect for the game, that I would never do that to anybody in any sport. And certainly fans have every right to look at it the way they want, or they're the ones that pay the money. They're the ones that come to the games or watch on TV or listen on the radio. But I feel there's a professionalism that you need to have when you're on the TV or the radio. When you're in someone in my position, certainly someone who's coming in just to fill in, and obviously somebody who is doing it for a living full time, they can do it however they want. Brad Feldman's a top announcer. I wouldn't accuse him of being a homer, but you can hear in his voice how happy and excited he is when the Revolution succeed and do well. But for me, that's one of the top announcers in America. So I'm glad he reached out. I'm actually surprised he's watching.
You were the associate head coach and recruiting coordinator for Boston College for a couple of years, spent time at Clemson under a legendary staff there. When you get to work with and for so many different people that you look up to, how much better does that make the experience?
Oh, without a doubt. So, Mike Noonan, Mike and I worked together at Brown in the mid-'90s, and when I left MLS, he asked me if I'd come back and join him at Clemson. And, I'd say one of the reasons why I'm at Georgia Southern was because of my time at Clemson, and my time at Clemson reinforced to me that I wanted to be at a big Southern school that had big football. I saw firsthand that, it really drives the university, it drives the department, and obviously you have respect for the other sports, especially at Clemson. You had Jack Leggett in baseball and Brad Brunell for the basketball. So, the athletic department at Clemson was amazing, but it just reinforced to me that I wanted to be at a place like that. And for me, Clemson and Georgia Southern have a lot of similarities. But in regards to Mike and then Ed Kelly at Boston College, they're two different guys, two fantastic people, but they're just two different kinds of guys, and both really, really top coaches. So I don't know what the analogy would be, trying to compare and contrast coaches from different places, but both top coaches, great motivators, really good minds for the game, but they just did it in a different way. And I can't say one was better than the other. Mike's won a national championship, which I was absolutely over the moon. My son and I went up to Raleigh to try and support them up there this past fall. But Ed had great success as well, and we went to a national quarterfinal, and we were just probably an inch away from going to the Final Four. So I think when we talk about success as coaches, obviously we want championships, we want on-the-field success, but those are two guys that really impacted people on and off the field. Which at the end of the day is really our job, is to make sure that we're helping these young people kind of navigate the college experience and try and have some success, win championships, but at the same time too, making sure they're making good decisions, they're excelling academically, and I certainly learned from two of the best with those two.
You had spent time in the college ranks, both as a head coach and an assistant, before going to the pro ranks. How difficult was it to go from professional soccer back into college athletics?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it was difficult. It wasn't difficult for me to go from college to pros because I was a goalkeeper specialist. So similar to being a quarterback coach, you really need to develop that relationship with those 2-3 guys. And as long as my relationship with the goalkeepers was good, then everybody else thought I was great. And then eventually I started to get a bigger role and started to work with people. So John Harks is the head coach up in Greenville. He comes down here when he plays Tormenta. We see each other all the time. And this is a guy that's played in World Cups and someone I was fortunate enough to work with, and we have a great relationship. But it all started from being a goalkeeper coach, and you really have to just keep those 2-3 guys ticking over and playing well, and then you start to move up. And eventually I was a first assistant and reserve team coach and all that. But yeah, to get to your question, it was difficult. It was difficult to go from the pros back down to college. It's difficult to coach in front of 40, 50,000 people, and then you come to a college game and perhaps there's a couple hundred people, and especially when we took Clemson was really on a tough time. And what Mike Noonan's done in the basically the 10 years that he's been here, it's just at Clemson's nothing short of a miracle. What he's done to take Clemson from where they were up to eventually winning the national championship in the fall. But that was a tough one going right in, and Clemson's as good as you're going to get when it comes to a college job. But I definitely noticed the difference, and it took me a while. It took me a while to kind of adjust to that. But the kids are great. We're working with college young men, and obviously I don't coach women, but young men, young women. They have a lot of energy. You feel like you'd have an impact on them and help them, during a time in their life where they need a voice. And some kids come come from great households and some kids come from tough households. And I think either way you can provide a voice for them that they need at that time in their life. And I think that's where I got my head around the fact that I was back in college and it was a good decision. And obviously went from, Clemson to Anderson, then the Boston College, and then this opportunity down here at Georgia Southern. And we couldn't be happier with it. It's been fantastic.
One of your last years in professional soccer, in 2009, you became the first American citizen to work in British pro soccer with Livingston. How important was that to you, and how much? I know it's something that you take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Kelly still thinks I was crazy, so he always asked me why I went over there. So, and in some ways, he's not wrong, because there's things that don't correlate from the professional game to the college game. So, I worked at Livingston, and I was fortunate enough to work with Paul Hegarty, who was a big-time former player and a really top coach and top person. But eventually I was the head coach for a little while, but I was the head coach for 44 days. So you say 44 days to anybody, they say, like what the heck were you doing? But professional sports, and certainly soccer in the UK, is so volatile that I think 44 days I lasted more than some people. So, but I remember sitting in for a college interview, and athletic director saying, "I love your resume, but can you tell me what happened at Livingston?" And I burst out laughing. I said, "Yeah, it doesn't really resonate too well with a college AD." But yeah, that's part of it. If you're going to go into that world, and I'm sure, top college football coaches that have gone into the NFL, like a Nick Saban, and he goes in there, it's just completely different. And I really took to it personally, but it's quite volatile from a personal standpoint, and certainly if you have a family and things like that. So I think any sport is like that, NBA, NFL, any coach that decides to go from college into the pros, there's definitely a transition. But I loved it. I loved how intense it was, and particularly over in Scotland, there'll be things that maybe aren't great, but all the right things are right on, like the passion for the game, the commitment, the way the fans are. It's their national game. It's something they take very serious. And for a small country, it's produced some fantastic players and teams. And so my mother's Scottish, so I'm proud of my Scottish background and proud of my time over there. But sometimes I look back at it, I was like, that was a crazy time. So, like I said, Ed Kelly thought I was crazy, so he might be right.
In your over 25 years of coaching in college, it's something that we've talked about a little bit over the last couple of years, but in your 25 years, Georgia Southern is the longest stint that you've had in one spot. Yeah. You said you're very proud of that because you got to see it from a lot of different perspectives. Yeah. Talk about that and how important that is to you.
Yeah, I think that, I try and mentor young coaches, and, I was ambitious. So especially as an assistant, I do think you have to go where the work takes you. And, so there was times that I was a head coach when I was at Assumption and Anderson. Those were two Division II jobs, and they were good jobs. I really enjoyed them, and I felt in both of those jobs I could stay there for 20 years, but is that really what I wanted to do? So, when I kind of bounced from job to job, it was never really anything but just trying to push myself and move forward. And then when you're an assistant coach, it definitely can get like that. But, I've been looking for a venue, a project, a place where I could put my roots down and really try and create something. And, we felt it when I went down for the interview and the timing of it with my wife, with our young children. We just felt this was the place to kind of, create that project. So like I said, the first 4 years pre-COVID, I mean, we won the Sun Belt for the first time in the history of the program. We lost in the Sun Belt Championship in 2018. We were 10 minutes away from going to the NCAA tournament for the first time in the history of the program. So those 4 years were very, very competitive. And then, we took it on the nose in COVID, and I'm the one that has to kind of own that and live with it. I'm not going to use that as an excuse, but it was a factor. That's why I try to explain to people, like the year that football had during COVID, that wasn't a good year. That was a great year. For them to have the year that they had and then go down and win the bowl game out of New Orleans, I don't care what anybody says. That was a tough year to work with young people, and they had a great year. So post-COVID, we're on our way back. Like I said, the team I thought we had last year was very young and very talented, and we're going to build on that again this year. So, going into the 7th year, and I'm very proud to be here, and we're very happy here. And, I feel like I'm an advocate for this part of the world, and sometimes it's the people people that from down here I'm convincing how great it is. So, and it's normal, I guess, if you're from Boston, you take for granted the things you have in Boston, and sometimes you need an out-of-towner to tell you how great it is. But, my wife and my boys and I, we love Statesboro. We love Brooklet, where we live, and I love the weather. I love the location. My wife went to St. Mary's with my youngest yesterday and took the ferry out to the island and rode around their bikes. And it's just like a great part of the world in between Charleston and Jacksonville. And we feel very privileged to be here. So it's something that I don't take for granted. I didn't come here to put my feet up. I didn't come down here to hang out. I came down here to win championships. I've always felt it was a long-term project. I think the teams that Georgia Southern has had over their 40 years, they've had some really eclectic, talented teams for sure. But I think the 4 years that we had previous to COVID, those were 4 really strong years. And I think those are, that's the platform that I'm building to move forward as we go into this new Sun Belt.
Finally, before we let you go, one final thing. Brad told me to make sure to tell you that Larry Bird wasn't the best ever.
Oh, that's horrible. It's horrible. It's tough to hear that. It's funny, when I was growing up, Bernard King was my favorite player, and Bernard King was a New York Knick, and I thought Bernard King was the greatest player I ever saw. But the Boston people are funny about Larry Bird. We really, he means a lot to us, and I always see stories about like French Lick, Indiana, getting overrun with people from Boston. They just go there and take pictures and everything. So, yeah, it's tough to talk bad about Larry Bird. I'm a little disappointed in Brad, but I'm not surprised.
Murph, really appreciate you taking the time tonight to be our special guest host. Really appreciate what you do for athletics.
No, thank you. I enjoy speaking about the other teams, and it's an exciting time of year with all these different things going on. So certainly the teams that are going into their tournaments, we wish them the very best. And then, obviously with the golfs and softball and baseball, it's just exciting times for them right now. And track as well. It's with Kelly Carter, all the great work that he does. So it's great working at a place like this. There's always something going on. I was trying to take notes today, and there's like so many things going on. I'm really impressed you can keep track of them all.
We figured it out somehow.
That's right.
Georgia Southern baseball at home this weekend against the Georgia State Panthers. Panthers come in atop the Sun Belt Conference. Georgia Southern 2 games back, tied for Troy in 3rd place. But it'll be 6:30 on Thursday and Friday, 2 o'clock on Saturday. Until this weekend, appreciate John Murphy once again, head men's soccer coach here at Georgia Southern. But for John Murphy, this is Colin Lacy saying so long, everybody.
You've been listening to Inside Eagle Nation, powered by Learfield, the official podcast of Georgia Southern Athletics.